Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final session in our spring series on moving to OER. Um, see, I just want to say welcome and thank you for coming today. And we're going to have time for questions, both recorded and unrecorded, at the end of this session. But if any questions come up as I'm talking, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And if you registered for this event, you will receive a link to the recording. Sometime this afternoon, I will be posted on YouTube, and all recordings are always publicly available to everyone, so please feel free to share widely. So here's what we're covering today. Essentially, it's a look at why and how you should and want, or you may want to adapt OER, including some tools and resources you can use. And many of these are housed on the UDC Library website. So if you forget everything I mentioned here today, just know you can find it again through the UDC Library website. And so this is the last webinar in this series. If you missed any of our previous webinars, which covered other aspects of OER and OA, you can find those recordings on our YouTube page. And so what makes OER something you can adapt? Well, that's down to its open license. Traditional textbooks are usually issued and distributed through corporate publishing houses. The authors of those textbooks may or may not retain the rights to the material they wrote. Using material still under copyright, while allowed for educational purposes, can be fraught with legal ramifications. And if you ever paid attention to what happened in Georgia a few years ago, things can get a bit dicey when it comes to traditionally copyrighted materials. OER materials, on the other hand, are all issued under an open license. That means that they can be used and adapted freely with minimal to no permissions needed. Most OER is issued under an open license through Creative Commons. And Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization that helps creators license and distribute their work. Licenses are designed to let others know how the work may be copied, distributed, edited, remixed, and built upon. The licenses work within the confines of traditional copyright law, so these are fully legal documents, but they are designed to let you adapt existing material. There are different kinds of licenses, and going over open licenses is a webinar unto itself, but we have a guide for the fundamentals on the UDC Library webpage, so feel free to find it there. And if you ever have questions about an open license, we're happy to help answer those for you. I also want to mention that since there are still existing gaps in what OER material is available, you may wish to fill in with some commercial or traditionally published information. Luckily, under copyright law, educational purposes often fall under fair use. Some material may even be in the public domain, making it free from copyright. Fair use allows you to use copyrighted works without permission for a limited and transformative purpose, such as commentary, criticism, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, or parody. Fair use exception to copyright is not defined as an exception, is not defined as other exceptions, such as classroom or library uses, but generally, if you are using something within a classroom for a limited period, you can use traditionally copyrighted material under fair use. The reason we always recommend OER in these instances is you are free from that hesitation that maybe your use of existing copyrighted material may not be lawful. So adapting OER means making changes to existing OER materials to better suit your needs. And these changes can be as big as whole-scale rewrites of entire textbooks or as small as simply changing some pictures in a chapter. So why would you adapt OER? There are a ton of different reasons, but here are a few of the biggies. The first is inclusion. You may wish to provide more inclusive access or looks in the media or examples used in existing OER. This can better speak to all kinds of students, particularly those who attend a school like UDC. Second, you might want to make changes for the sake of accessibility. Depending on the needs of your class and the students in a particular class, you may need to improve the accessibility of materials. This can be for those who have different impairments, different learning needs, or simply folks who have different access to technology. We all know a lot of our students use materials on their phone, and so you might want to adapt something that works better on mobile. You also might want to consider adapting material for the sake of customization. The main reason to adapt OER is to customize it to your course. You can tailor something existing to feel personal and individualized to not only a specific course, but maybe even a specific class if you teach more than one section. You also may want to consider adapting OER for the sake of keeping it to date. Uh, some OER material, just like any other existing material, may be slightly out of date, and you can update it with the latest scholarship findings or information. With OER, you can do this on your own instead of waiting for a commercial publisher to go through the long process of creating and editing a new book. So you can take existing OER, swap out some of the statistics that may be updated, and call it a day. And so here are a few ways you can adapt OER to suit your needs. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's just an example of what we mean by adapting OER. So if there are OER materials available for your subject, but they are either too broad, a little dated, or contain information you don't necessarily teach, you can take the existing OER resource and adapt it to your specific course. You can edit out all the material you don't need and build in the material or information that you do want to include. Adapting OER material for your course is a great idea because the bulk of the work has already been done for you. You are simply mixing and matching. And so this leads into the idea of adapting OER material into what we call a course pack. And you used to be able to do this with commercial publishers and would often cost your students hundreds of dollars to access these commercial course packs. But with OER, those are either free or an extremely low cost to your students. And so you can an OER textbook from one website, maybe add a few library articles and throw in some worksheets from another website. These packs offer a chance for you to be flexible and to include new information. It also shares the breadth of information that is available to your students, and so can get them used to the idea that different information does different things. We can sort of build in information literacy skills as we adapt and share OER with our students. And adapting material also allows you to directly speak to your students. So you can include examples, images, audios, and stories that highlight the diversity and special interests of your particular class. You can also consider taking existing material and only changing the examples used so it more closely fits your class. So if you've ever been worried about cheating where people take material from previous classes, what you can do is take the existing OER textbook and simply change maybe the essay or discussion question prompts to something new each semester. That way you don't have to worry about students, copying wholesale from their friend who took the class the previous semester. Finally, you can also think local and include material that is highly specific to your students, the course, the university, or your local community. Here at UDC, we're big on getting students to explore the DC area, so maybe you can build in some material that is specifically related to what it is like to, go to a school in Washington, DC. And really, you can do whatever you want. The benefit of OER is that you can make it work for you. And so the process of adapting OER may seem a bit daunting, but it's just like editing any other existing material. First, you have to find existing OER material to work with, and the UDC library is happy to help create a short list for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us about that. Then you can assess and review this existing OER material for any changes you want to make. Next, you need to check the license on these materials to ensure that you are only making changes that are allowed by the original creator. And the benefit of OER is that most have what is called a CC BY license, which means you can copy and redistribute the material in any medium or format for any purpose, even commercially. It also allows you to remix, transform, and build upon the material for any purpose, again, even commercially. With a CC BY license, you can make any changes you want as long as you provide attribution to the original OER creator. And if you ever have any questions about the license attached to an existing OER item, please don't hesitate to contact the library and we can walk you through what is and is not allowed according to each license. And there's also plenty of charts out there like the one I showed previously. After checking these licenses, you want to review the format the material is in to determine how it may be edited. And this will change based on the format, but most material is easily downloaded and edited using existing tools. A lot of these documents can be downloaded not only as PDF, but also Word documents. Many audio files can be downloaded in a format that you can then edit in a editing software. And then you may also want to consider ensuring access to this material when you edit and save it for later use by your students. So just make sure that the material you are editing and then later saving, your students actually have access to, so they don't need to purchase proprietary software. And then before you share, it's best practice to give the final product an accessibility review. And there are many tools that can help. This would include following standards for products like screen readers, using alt text on images, and allowing for font size changes for those users who may need to increase the text size. And then finally, you can save and share your changes to continue updating the OER universe. Since OER is ever growing, there are many existing tools and resources you can use when you adapt material. The UDC library has an OER guide where we list specific tools and resources, including ebooks on how to modify existing OER. And yes, those OER books about adapting OER are OER themselves, so feel free to have fun with that. There are also plenty of how-to guides walking you through how to adapt OER, and again, we've linked to several of those in our online guide. You can also go to any stock photo or video website to update material used in existing OER to speak to your course or your students. And again, the UDC library is happy to recommend places to go for that. And finally, there are many graphic editing tools like Canva, where you can create new images, graphics, charts, slides, or anything else visual in your OER. And if adapting is not enough for you, you can consider creating your own OER. This way you get the ideal item you had in mind. When creating OER, you don't need to do everything immediately. You can take baby steps like writing one chapter, creating one ancillary item, or drafting one project to get you started. Another way to jumpstart this process is to use open pedagogy. This is where you can create projects where students, as an actual assignment, help you create an item of OER. We held a webinar on this a few weeks ago if you want more details, or there's plenty of online resources with ideas for open pedagogy that you can incorporate into your course. Finally, whenever you do create OER from scratch, remember to share it. You can add your own CC license on these materials. And there are many OER repositories out there. And so if you found it useful, others might as well. And you can upload your item of OER to these repositories for others to look out and use themselves. And here at UDC, that is something you can add to your tenure portfolio. And many of these OER repositories include download counts, so you can see the impact you are having on the greater OER universe. And so when it comes to OER, you are not alone. If you need any help at all finding or adapting OER, the UDC library is here to help. One common thing that we do is we can take an existing syllabus and course materials list and go out and look through all the OER repositories to help create a short list of materials for you to then review to see if you would like to either include them in your course or adapt them to your needs. And so you can contact us via email or online chat, set up an appointment, or just stop by the reference desk to talk to us in person. And so I know this was short and sweet, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about adapting OER or OER in general.
Well, thanks for the overview and sort of the update on what's going on in terms of sort of the return of course packs, which is what brings me to my question. We use an OER textbook written by a few professors just up the street at American University on podcasting. And I am looking to sort of chunk that into some course modules and then to find other OER assignments that would align with both what's in the OER textbook and the overall course goals that we have written in our syllabus. Where should I go looking?
So those would be the best place to go is to our OER guide. And let me go ahead and gotta get that up in our LibGuides. We have tons of repositories recommended in our, I can't type and talk at the same time. We have an entire guide devoted to OER on the UDC Library website, but I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the chat. And this will be under the Find OER tab. Now, under there, not only do we list things, pretty typical ones people know about, like the Open Textbook Library, but also the OER Commons and various places like the Mason OER MetaFinder and Merlot and Galileo Open Learning Materials. And this includes things beyond the traditional textbooks. And if you have, specific things you're looking for, again, we as the librarians are happy to help you track down those particular materials. On our, find page, we also list places that have open access materials or items out of copyright. So things like books, places to get OER journals and articles, and then also a few recommendations of where to find multimedia, where you can find freely available things as well.
Excellent. Thanks for the link.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, if there's anything specific you're looking for, if you're like, I want a podcast about podcasts or something like that, we're happy to help you track that information down. You just, don't hesitate to shoot us an email or me, directly, since I know I work with you a lot, Dr. Hanf, and we can help you track that down. Not seeing anything else come in, so I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for coming today. This was our last session in the OER series, but if you are interested in seeing any of the sessions we hosted earlier, they are all available on our UDC YouTube page. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.